Kevin is a soul and the biggest spiritual and interesting person in our group. He makes us a lot of laugh when he says some funny stuff in our classes. Spent 5 years in China.
Yeah. It was a fantastic time, though. I mean, so 2009, the U.S. economy was pretty bad, right? But China was booming, right? There was stuff to do everywhere, and spending your 20s in a country that is growing quickly, that's dynamic, and you're in a big urban environment. It was really quite impactful.
Kevin, thank you so much that you come and spend your time here.
Kevin Dodes. I part of MBOTH 134. Originally from Mississippi, as you know. Grew up there most of my life, and then studied Chinese quite randomly. Lived in China for a couple years and been back in the U.S. for about 8, primarily in healthcare and medical technology. And can't believe we're actually wrapping up Kellogg. Never really imagined
last
we'd be here.
two weekends.
That's right.
Hard to believe.
Right. 2 weekends and a capstone week.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your childhood. Mississippi.
Yeah.
Right? What is most memorable stuff from your childhood you remember from this state?
Yeah, so probably the most memorable thing is what I miss most now as an adult, which is my family. My grandmother had, I don't know, she's like one of 4, and I feel like each of them had 3 or 4 kids. And so I grew up with tons of cousins and aunts and uncles, and every year we'd get together at my great-grandmother's house for Christmas Eve. And so you'd have, 80 people together every year to celebrate the holidays. And my father's side of the family, they were all in Mississippi as well. So I just had a lot of people growing up, you know what I mean? And of course now, after leaving Mississippi, I haven't lived there since I was maybe 21, so almost 15 years. And every place, not quite that many people as soon as you show up. So I think that's probably one of my fondest memories, is getting together like that.
And you finished high school, you graduated?
Yep, graduated in 2005, I think. And then went to college, University of Mississippi. I studied international studies and Chinese.
That's where you get to Chinese language.
That's right. So it was completely random. I think I told you that I had good grades, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so I didn't have plans really to go to college or do anything specific with my life in high school. But a recruiter for Ole Miss found me and said, look, I think what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. I think I just want to see more than Mississippi. And she said, well, look, apply to the Croft Institute for International Studies. There's scholarship programs. There's, every student does study abroad, and what's the worst that could happen? So I followed the advice. I did it. I got in the program. I was interviewed for a scholarship. I got a scholarship. I showed up. And the professor says, what do you want to study? Like, what area of the world? And I said, I have no idea. This is 2005. And I said, look, I've studied German, I've studied Spanish. I don't really like to conjugate. I can't really remember if the table is supposed to be a man or a woman, like the gender stuff with nouns. And he said, well, hey, Chinese doesn't have any of that. So why don't you give that a try? And I thought, okay, sure. And
but you speak also German?
Well, I mean, this was high school. I took 2 years of German in high school, so
German, Spanish.
Spanish. Yeah, Spanish was elementary school. Yeah, but all of it is very, very rusty.
Okay.
But Chinese, became such a big part of my life. I mean, it was in an intensive program, so we had Chinese every day for
4 years.
4 years. Yeah. Went to China for 2 summers. I did a study abroad semester there. When I graduated.
What university? What city in China?
So I did. I started in Qingdao University. So Qingdao University is in Qingdao, China, in Shandong Province. In 2007, 2008. 2008, that summer, I actually met my now wife, who was a student at Qingdao University.
Oh.
And then in spent that fall in Hangzhou at Zhejiang Gongye Daxue, so Zhejiang would be a technical university. And then I came back to the States and then went back for a post-bachelorate year. So I spent 6 months at Nanjing University, which is like one of the top 5 schools, taking classes with Chinese undergrad students. And then spent about 6 months at an internship. I think I taught for a little bit, basically didn't go back, and then met up with my girlfriend. We decided to move to Beijing.
Internship, you work somewhere.
Yeah.
What
yeah.
company?
It's, gosh, I can't even remember the name of it now. It was a translation company, so I thought, oh, I speak Chinese, I speak English, like maybe I'll do translations. Not really thinking that, you know, there were all these other applications of being bilingual. And I hated it. I hated it. I mean, it's such a grind, and I'm not a very detail-oriented person.
But it was not in Beijing. You moved after that.
It was in Nanjing. Yeah, it was in Nanjing. Because that's where this program was, and so kind of you apply for a grant, you go, and I think I got a few $1,000s, and it was enough to sort of buy a ticket, pay rent for a year, and that was it. And everything else I just had to figure out. And yeah, spent almost 5 years.
5 years
in China.
After that, you moved to Beijing and spent 5 years in China.
Yeah. It was a fantastic time, though. I mean, so 2009, you know, the U.S. economy was pretty bad, right? But China was booming, right? There was stuff to do everywhere, and you know, spending your 20s in a country that is growing quickly, that's dynamic, you know, and you're in a big urban environment. It was really quite impactful. I was teaching English because that was the easiest way to stay in the country.
In school?
Yeah, to like kindergartners or not, more like daycare, right? The equivalent would be daycare in the States. So, you know, you've got 4, 5, 6-year-old children, and you're teaching them English, and it was a private daycare, so the money was okay, and then I was tutoring on the weekends and basically working 7 days a week trying to save money. And when I turned 24, maybe, it was old enough to get like a normal work visa. So in China, under a certain age, at that time they weren't giving work visas, but as an English speaker, I could get an expert certificate and teach English that way. So that was sort of a workaround. So when I turned 24, I applied for like other jobs, and I ended up getting a role at a public relations firm called Fortive. Their Beijing office called me, and I started in public relations.
Nice. Very interesting story. Okay, now let's think about a little bit about future. You got to Kellogg.
Yeah.
And you have some dream where you want to continue your career path, or you want to start business, or you want to have position in some famous company, or...
Yeah, so that's been, I think, a great part of this journey is I've thought less about maybe what I need to do next and kind of more about what I need to do right now, just in terms of kind of taking care of myself and trying to develop my own leadership style. I think in the last 2 years, this whole experience has been really transformative. I mean, I told you I stopped drinking alcohol about a year ago. I started to work out. You know, I'm starting, you know, Kramer has got me thinking about journaling now, right? So I've got a plan for that. So I think it's just really being around all these other people like yourself and the rest of our classmates, right? They sort of push you to think, what should I be doing differently? How should I be showing up differently for myself or for other people that need me? And so in that respect, it's been fantastic. I think in terms of what to do next, I don't know.
No direct plan, but you have some...
Yeah, well, so I've been really lucky, right? I think, so I work for a company called Fortive. I've been there 3 years this month, actually. So I just had my 3-year work anniversary. And one of the things that I love about working there is the environment to learn. So I'm a bit of a, like, unfocused sometimes, right? Like I like learning, I like getting to do new things and having new challenges. And so, you know, in some companies, if you're a product manager or an engineer, that's what you're doing for the next 30 years. And at Fortive, I think they really pay more attention to kind of transferable skill sets, learning agility. Really, do you have kind of the skills or the attitude to take on the challenge, right? And if you do, often they'll kind of take a chance on you as a talent and try it out. And so I started there 3 years ago as what they call an FBS leader. So the Fortive Business System is how they create value in companies. And the FBS leader's job is to basically work with different leaders to help create that value within their functions, right? So I did that for about a year and a half, and I worked on everything from kind of commercial go-to-market, R&D investments, you name it. And after that, my president came to me and said, listen, the president that I was working for. So I was in one of the operating companies. They have 16, 17 operating companies. I was in one that was in the healthcare segment. So the president of our operating company, who I reported to, came to me and said, listen, you've gotten us to a point where as leaders we can manage some of this now on our own. And there's a role that's opened up in supply chain, and we'd like you to take that on. And I was like, what am I doing in supply chain, right? I started out in public relations, I've done marketing, I've done product development. This FBS leader job that I find hard to explain to other people, like, what am I doing in supply chain? And she said, look, we could give you a job you've already done, or we could give you a job that you haven't done, and you could get a new tool under your belt. And I thought, that's the right way to think about it. So jumped in, supply chain transformation, sort of just, how do I think about, supply and demand, and how do we do planning, and what do we do with our suppliers and our manufacturing base, and it was its own interesting puzzle to work through. And led a transformation there, took $20 million out of inventory, improved our on-time delivery to customers. It was a fantastic experience. And got another call from somebody else, the chief HR officer of Fortive actually. She said, listen, I know you've got aspirations to lead a business, but I'd like to kind of make a proposal. And she told me about this HR transformation kind of program that they've been on at Fortive, where historically all of the 16, 17 operating companies have operated independently. So each group had their own payroll, their own recruiting, their own HR business partners, everything was independent. And she wanted to bring it together, right, which would drive some standards, some improvement in quality, some scale, and allow us to take some of those investments and plow it into things like learning and development or new technology. And she wanted help doing that. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 6 or 7 months, which has been an interesting journey.
Looks like you appreciate company. It's very unusual, to be honest with you. Usually people wanna change company, sure. Right? They wanna do something else and wanna prefer a different company. Even I'm surprised, it's not from our cohort, but I hear from different people who work in Google. So they wanna do something else. Oh my God, I went to the Google office.
Google.
It's a great place when people dream to work and still not enough. I said, even I came to my company, I said, I didn't have an idea of what we should create that make people stay.
Yeah.
Because if people wanna live at Google, free food.
What are you gonna do?
Sometimes when I came to this, they never work. They always were walking around, playing the games, right? What we should create, people wanna stay. But it's cool that you appreciate company and they give you opportunity to do what you like to do. Let's move to your new alma mater or second alma mater, because you finished university in Mississippi. Why you decided you want to go to Kellogg? There's so many schools around US and in the world.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So when I was, when I think about my career, my aspiration has always been to run a business, right? To be a general manager. I am maybe what you call a T-shaped leader, so broad experience. I can go deep on some things, but I'm not a PhD in chemical engineering or something like that. And so when I was looking at schools, there were two things I was looking for. Being in Minneapolis, I didn't want to travel too far. And so Chicago is an easy easy trip. I wanted an executive program because I'm already 37, and so I wanted to be around leaders who were sort of in a similar situation.
This experience.
That's right. And I wanted a program that had, sort of well known for kind of general management or marketing, because that was where I wanted to go and where I've been. And Kellogg fit the bill. And I came here for one of the preview days, spent some time with the students and the faculty, and it felt right, so I just leaned into it.
Class. Kevin, thank you so much. I appreciate it. For great conversation. I think many people will inspired of your story. From Mississippi, China, back to US, got good company position, and I'm sure in the future we'll see you somewhere.
I hope so.
So
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you.